Welcome back. In this video, we're going to continue looking at our basic inflation formula, which says this, that if we know the starting value in today's dollars for some item, and that's little a, and we also know the inflation rate that acts on the cost of this item once a year, and we know t, the number of years that inflation is allowed to act, then we can compute the future value or the future cost of that amount A t years from now. So this is just a modified version of the compound interest formula. Notice that what we may want to do is start with some future amount that we receive in the future and try to backtrack to find out what is the value in today's real dollars. So essentially what we want to do here is solve for A if we know F. So we want to isolate A all by itself. The thing that is keeping us from having that isolated right now is this quantity 1 plus I raised to the power of t. So all we're going to do is divide both sides by that quantity. It would look like this. So this is just some number when we do the calculation. So I'm going to divide both sides by that number. And you can see here on the right side, 1 plus I to the t divided by 1 plus I to the t is just 1. And that's going to leave me A on the right-hand side. Or if we move things around and kind of switch them using what's called the reflexive property that says if A is equal to B, then B is equal to A. So we can change which side we put the A on, the little a on. So that tells us that little a is equal to capital F divided by 1 plus I to the t. In other words, if I know how much something is worth in the future, and I know how much time in the future I've gone and what the inflation rate is, then I can backtrack to the value today in real dollars. So this allows me to take nominal dollars, capital F, and convert them to real dollars, little a. Let's do an example. Let's say that 30 years from now, you receive a check for $100. What is that amount in today's dollars, in real dollars, if the rate of inflation is 2.5%? Now, in a previous video, we went in the opposite direction. We said that if we started with $100 today and it grew 2.5% every year, what would it be worth, in 25 or 30 years? And we saw that it more than doubled. And so now what we want to do is go the opposite direction. If I get $100 30 years from now, what's it really worth? What can I really buy for it in terms of today's dollars? In other words, what is the spending power? So I'm just going to use this formula here and fill in the information that I have. So I have that the future cost or the future value of this amount is $100. That goes up on top. I know the inflation rate is 2.5%, and I know that 30 years of inflation are going to act on this amount. And you can see here, this is a calculation that a scientific calculator like Desmos or any handheld calculator can do pretty quickly. And when we do that, we get 47.6743. So if we convert that to a meaningful sentence, this just says that in real dollars, in today's dollars, $100 in the future is only worth $47.67 today. That's what we call its spending power in today's dollars. So what we see is that $100 that I receive in the future has had its spending power cut by more than half. And that kind of makes sense if you think about the previous video where we saw that the $100 doubled over 30 years time because of inflation. Now we're seeing that inflation is going to cut in half our spending power for an amount that's 30 years down the road. So it's really important that we pay attention to the effects of inflation because it can truly impact how we think about the money that we're going to receive in the future if we're, let's say, planning for retirement. The larger the inflation rate or the larger amount of time that the inflation is allowed to act on our amount will actually continue to reduce its spending power because as the denominator here gets larger, then the overall fraction is going to become smaller. So higher inflation rates or longer periods of time are not good for our spending power. And so we have to keep that in mind as we plan for things like retirement. There's not a whole lot we can do about inflation. So we're going to have to mostly just accept the fact that this is going to impact what we think about, how we plan for our futures, and then adjust accordingly right now.